praised the Buddha for teaching the theory of dependent origination. The seeing of dependent origination and eradicate the root of samsara. Whatever degenerations there are in the world, the root of all these is ignorance. You taught that it is dependent origination, the seeing of which will undo this ignorance. Unawareness is the root of as much torment as there is in the world. Thus you spoke of dependent arising, which, if seen, turns that back. The root of samsara. In this world, all afflictions, sufferings, degenerations, destructions, and so on, are fundamentally caused by ignorance. The Buddha taught us that the root of all of these sufferings and degenerations in samsara can be eradicated by the recognition of dependent origination. Why is that? It is because all sufferings of living beings are directly caused by mental affliction, such as desire, hatred, and jealousy, which are in turn caused by ignorance. What are we ignorant of? Every living being is, in fact, the combination of 5 aggregates. In spite of this, people regard that there is as an independent existence with an intrinsic nature. Starting from this misunderstanding, ordinary people have attachment to self and to the things that belong to self. This results in suffering from sickness, old age, and death, or from the loss of or failure in the seeking after of desirable things. Furthermore, the root cause of wars between countries and conflicts between families and individuals are also due to self-attachment. In other words, suffering and restlessness in this world are the result of the ignorance of ordinary people who strongly believe that this illusory world has a solid existence. As the Buddha said, if one can destroy ignorance, then all the other 11 links of dependent origination can be destroyed, and that is the end of samsara. The indication of dependent origination. It is said in the play in full that the Bodhisattva perceives the truth of dependent origination and realizes the true nature of the world. In the Vimalakirti Sutra also directs the reader to profoundly enter into the teaching of dependent origination and eliminate all wrong views. It suggests that all wrong views, ignorance, afflictions, and sufferings are due to the lack of understanding of the law of dependent origination, which, if one were to truly understand it, he or she would no longer become attached to anything or experience any kind of suffering. For example, people always pursue high position, but in fact, social position is nothing more than a fabricated phenomenon that is dependent on related causes and conditions. In the 70 stanzas on emptiness, the last verse says that by seeing that internal and external phenomena arise from causes and conditions, one eliminates the whole network of wrong views. As a result, one abandons desire, hatred, and ignorance, and thereby attains nirvana unstained by wrong views. It is also said in the Lankavatara Sutra that ordinary and ignorant people regard phenomena that arises from causes and conditions as true existence. Due to this delusion, they fail to recognize the true nature of the 3 samsaric worlds. This is the current situation of ordinary beings. However, once they realize the truth of dependent origination, their ignorance will be eliminated, and as a consequence, all corresponding suffering will vanish. The path of dependent origination is the essence of the Dharma. So how can an intelligent person not comprehend that this path of dependent origination is the essential point of your teaching? At that time, how could those with intelligence not have comprehended the path of dependent arising as being the essential point of your teachings? The essential point of the Buddha's teaching. If we understand that realizing the principle of dependent origination and eliminate ignorance can cut through all kinds of suffering, then we can naturally understand that the path of dependent origination is the essence of the Buddha's teaching. In other words, the essential teaching of all 84,000 paths of liberation can be summed up as the path of dependent origination. Therefore, an intelligent person should comprehend that this path is the fundamental and essential point of the Buddha's teaching. This is also the reason that Nagarjuna composed the root stanzas on the middle way, in which he employed the principle of dependent origination to support the conclusion that the ultimate nature of all phenomena is beyond all extremes of conceptual thought. Nagarjuna's manifestation in this world was prophesied by Buddha Shakyamuni himself, and after the Buddha entered parinirvana. Nagarjuna was regarded as the second Buddha, and his work, the root stanzas on the middle way, brings temporary and ultimate benefit to countless living beings. Intelligent people must understand that the truth of dependent origination is the single most essential teaching in Buddhism, and is the one that all serious practitioners must come to understand and to fully realize. There is a story of Sariputra and Mahayana and how they became disciples of the Buddha. Once, Sariputra saw a bhikkhu named Assaji who was begging for alms and rajagaha. Being impressed by Assaji's demeanor, Sariputra followed him until he had finished his alms round. When Assaji sat down, Sariputra asked him about his teacher and the teachings he followed. Assaji said that his teacher was Buddha Shakyamuni, and he had been taught the unexcelled Dharma, but could not offer more explanation due to his lack of experience. Upon the further urging of Sariputra, Assaji spoke this short verse: all dharmas originate from causes. The Tathagata has taught these causes, and also that which puts a stop to these causes. This too has been taught by the great Shramana. Sariputra was able to comprehend this teaching and thus gained Sotapanna, the first stage of arhathood. Sariputra immediately went off to share what he had learned with Mahayana. Mahayana, on hearing it, also attained the state of Sotapanna. Thereafter, Sariputra and Mahayana and their 250 disciples took refuge in the Buddha. Visualization is a way of dependent origination. Thus, intelligent people must know and understand that the teaching of dependent origination is the supreme and ultimate nectar in all the teachings of the Buddha Shakyamuni. In the Buddhapami Sutra Shastra it is said that if one sees the truth of dependent origination, one sees the nature of all phenomena, and if one sees the nature of all phenomena, one sees all the Buddhas. People usually think that seeing the Buddha means seeing his marvelous appearance. In fact, the real Buddha is the truth of dependent origination and the nature of all phenomena. In both the Mahayana and Vajrayana teachings, it is said that at that moment that one visualizes Amitabha, one becomes Amitabha. Alternately, when one visualizes Padmasambhava, one becomes Padmasambhava, and no other Padmasambhava exists anywhere else in the world. The appearance of Padmasambhava in the mind as a visualization is the relative Padmasambhava, and the ultimate Padmasambhava is the nature of mind that is beyond all extremes and elaborations. This is the perfect union of emptiness and appearance. Other than this, there is nothing else that can be called dependent origination. In other words, with the coming together of causes and conditions, there is both emptiness and appearance. For ordinary living beings, what they see is the appearance of all phenomena arising from causes and conditions. However, for enlightened beings, what they perceive is emptiness, which is the real nature of all phenomena. This is exactly why the Buddha says that everything comes from dependent origination. To praise the Buddha for having taught dependent origination is the best way of praising. This being so, who will find, O Savior, a more wonderful way to praise you than to praise you for having taught this origination through dependence? As that is so, how could anyone find as a gateway for praising you, O guardian, anything more wondrous than your statements about dependent arising? The way of praising. The Buddha has been praised by numerous beings in a variety of ways. Yet, of all the various ways of giving praise, the most supreme and wondrous is to offer praise for his teaching on dependent origination. As we know, followers of different traditions also praise their teachers for certain aspects of their qualities or their teachings. However, the aspects or features of these teachers are not unique or special. For example, some may praise their teacher for their ability to enter samadhi or manifest miraculous powers, or it may be for aspects of their personality, such as their compassion to other human beings. All of these are actually fairly common within the context of different spiritual traditions. The teaching on dependent origination, however, makes Buddha Shakyamuni the most supreme and unsurpassable teacher, because in all the world, it is only the Buddha who has taught living beings the truth of all phenomena and guided his followers on the path of liberation. Therefore, to praise his unique teaching is the most wonderful way that there is of praising the Buddha. The best way of praising. As we can see, to praise someone also requires wisdom. Without wisdom, one may not truly recognize the qualities of the person being praised. Even worse, praise without wisdom may be taken as slander. In this poem, we can see that Lama Tsongkhapa had realized the supreme teaching on dependent origination and created this composition from the perspective of his enlightened wisdom. It is because he himself perceived the true nature of all phenomena that Lama Tsongkhapa highly praised Buddha Shakyamuni for this unexcelled teaching. As followers of the Buddha, it is our great fortune to be able to study and practice the path of dependent origination. Therefore, we should each make the aspiration to follow in the footsteps of all enlightened masters and attain personal realization of the truth of dependent origination.